Premier of Gauteng, David Makhura, has said it's vital that there be more investment in transport in the province, and particularly around minibus taxis. Last week, an independent judicial commission found that the taxi industry in Gauteng is a law unto itself. I think most people probably knew that before the judge told us. But there are also huge issues around violence and criminality in this industry. Jacob Mamabolo is the MEC for Transport in Gauteng. MEC, good afternoon to you. We all know about the problems with the taxi industry. We all know it feels nothing. How are you going to change this? What are you going to try and do to make it safer for people to use taxis and for people on the road to be safer around taxis in Gauteng?
Well, Steve, let me say, because I think I'm speaking to you first time this year, hope I can still say Happy New Year to you. And thanks for the opportunity. Yes, today, Premier David Makhura presented in the legislature a very good, very comprehensive, detailed state of the province address, in which he indicated that we as a department have been given a clear directive to put together an implementation plan with timelines costed, and that is very clear on how we are going to implement very important recommendations in the report of the Commission on Taxi Violence. The first step in that is we have agreed with both Santago and the National Taxi Alliance in Gauteng, GNTA, that on the 11th of March, we would have given them enough time to study the report. They are now coming back to us to say, we think this is a priority, this is not a priority, this should come first. So those recommendations plan will include an input of the taxi industry, and by in and around 11th of March, we should be able to go back to Cabinet and say, these are the recommendations, unless the stakeholders want more time to consult members. But how we are going to resolve this matter, Steve, is that we will present a concrete plan of action that includes some of the key elements in the report.
MEC, we all want the same thing. We want minibus taxis to be safe. We want them to be reliable. What we all need as a society is for the violence to be taken out of them. This is an industry that's created its own industry of hitmen, people who travel from Gauteng to KwaZulu-Natal to shoot people and then go back again. It seems to me that the grand deal that's really being proposed here is a formalization of the industry to move away from associations to companies with CEOs, for example. I imagine you would support that. And in return, the taxi industry will get what it's wanted for a long time, which is a subsidy, which would probably be a consumer-based subsidy. Is that the sort of deal that's on the table, really? If we had to sort of boil it down, is that what you're looking at?
So let us go to the point you are raising, because what you are raising is what is clearly recommended in the report. It is in line with the outcomes of the Provincial Taxi Summit we held in July 2019. And one of the things that we are going to attend to is what is called the business model of the taxi industry. One of the things, as you have asked, how are we going to sort out this? And subject to consultation, is that the taxi industry, the taxi associations themselves, which are at the center of taxi activity, are currently not stated nor regulated in any manner in the current act, which is the National Land Transport Act. It doesn't say anything how to dissolve an association, financial accountability, their own constitutions, term of office, and yet these associations determine who becomes a member, who doesn't become the member. They have some unregulated control over what they call their routes. So the model of the current taxi industry will have to look into taxi associations must remain organizations of common interest of members, but they can't double up by being also serving as a mini or a quasi-business model, in the sense that some of them, they collect monies, they run normal business activities, they transact, and that is why they they've got all of things that they do. When people have to leave, they resist, they mobilize, they fight. Because there's a lot of money in the taxi associations, which actually should be focusing on common interests of members, but split that from association trying to be businesses. So that is one issue. The second issue, Steve, is the whole issue of us as a department and law enforcement agencies. The people that are registering the taxi associations in our department, taxi members, taxi operators, when they are employed, and I can tell you here in Gauteng, their term has come to an end. When they are employed, they are never vetted. They are never checked whether they have links or relationships with taxi operators. Those issues, we're looking at them. Law enforcement integration, we're looking at that. Technological systems, and many others.
So MEC, I mean, I understand all of that, and I'm sorry, we're going to be a bit pushed for time, but what you're asking people to do, and I mean, I have huge sympathy. I think everyone has sympathy with what you're trying to do and the situation. This goes back to 1968, I think it is.
Earlier than that.
Yeah. In the end, what it really boils down to is what you're trying to do. It's a political problem. You're trying to get some people to give up power over resources, right? Over money. It's very, very difficult to do, isn't it?
No. Steve, let's clarify that. The question that you raised, which of course I couldn't come to, is we must help the taxi industry as an original model of business that came from the taxi industry itself, and help that model to grow, help it to be real, true Black economic empowerment model, and make sure that they are able to participate in a whole range of value chains in the taxi industry. One of them you just raised, making sure that the subsidization, particularly and most preferably of the commuter, that takes you into financialization, into the banking system, because you'll need a card that is linked to the banks. So there's a whole range of things that will give the people in the taxi industry more money by participating in the business value chains. And in that way, they will then be able to see that you don't have to depend exclusively, entirely, and only on driving a taxi, picking up people on the road. You can still make money, feed your families as a business person without having to carry a gun. That is more a good incentive for them to refrain from the root of the barrel of the gun and run proper businesses, which will truly empower them, and that will deal with taxi violence. So it's a win-win model, and they are not losing anything. They are losing the current limiting and constraining model into a much more better, broader, dynamic business model that will make them even more better compared to where they are today.
MEC, I really appreciate the time. It's a complex issue. Thanks very much indeed. The Transport MEC in Gauteng, Jacob Mamabolo.